Hey everyone, it's me again, Alman, and I'm back with another explainer video. For this episode, I'm going to teach you how to pitch a tent. Any tent. Well, almost. So a few days ago, my friend and I went up to Mount Mataripis in Barangay San Andres, Tanay, Rizal. I have been to this mountain a few times and I made a vlog which, if you're interested, is on my YouTube channel. In fact, I'll put a clickable link which you can find on the upper right side of this video. But back to the topic, which is pitching any backpacking tent you can imagine. I'm going to divide this tutorial into three parts, and in this video, I'll be talking only about setting up freestanding tents. As its name suggests, a freestanding tent is one that is able to stand on its own. That definition is a tautology. It's overly simplistic and even a bit misleading since a tent still has to be pitched by someone. This term refers to a tent that supports itself with the help of tension poles that are attached to it through the use of clips or sleeves. It doesn't need to be staked or tied in order to stand erect and keep its shape. This makes moving it around the campsite possible. Of course, it doesn't mean that a freestanding tent has no need for pegs or guy lines. You will still need them to create the space for your vestibule, fix the tent into place, and make sure your nylon home resists strong winds that could possibly blow it away. Most freestanding tents follow the general form of a modified dome tent, which means that they have at least two poles that intersect overhead. So here's my step-by-step guide on pitching a freestanding tent. Number 1. Lay the ground sheet flat on the spot where you want to pitch your tent. If you've purchased a footprint that is specific to your tent, then you get an idea where exactly the tent body is going to be. Then lay the tent body over the ground sheet or footprint. The tent body, also known as the inner tent, creates the sleeping area of your campsite accommodations. The upper part of the tent body is usually made of a mesh material to shave off some weight and protect against bugs, but it often has a waterproof floor. Some tent bodies even have bathtub floors, which means that there are no seams that make direct contact with the ground. The ground sheet's main purpose is to protect the tent body's floor from wet soil as well as things on the ground that could potentially puncture it. If you're using a footprint, be sure to align the grommets of the footprint and the tent body. Now, what are those? Grommets are those metal circles or eyelets on the straps at the corners of your tents. This is where you insert the tips of your tent poles. Now, a note on choosing a spot for your tent. Don't get the flattest area in the campsite because that's where water pools in case it rains. Choose a slightly sloping area, and most probably you'd like to have your head higher than your feet. Also, make sure that the narrower and lower side of the tent and not its broad side is facing the source of the wind. Watch out for areas under trees as branches or fruits could fall and damage your tent. If all these qualities are present at the campsite, then that would be perfect. But most of the time, you'll have to compromise and will have to make decisions given the existing conditions. Step number 2. Assemble the tent poles. Tent poles create the structure of your freestanding tent and they are made up of lightweight aluminum or carbon fiber tubes. They snap together with the help of the tension created by the shock cord that runs through the tubes. Most new models of tents will have a pole hub, which is a point that's usually made of metal or plastic where all the tent poles connect. Make sure that the tent pole sections are flush against each other. If you don't do this, you could risk breaking your poles. Some tents might have brow poles, which are short sections and aren't part of a hub and attach only to the underside of the rainfly or over the tent body. Step 3. Insert the tips of the tension poles into the grommets. If you're unfamiliar with the tent model or just pitching your tent for the first time, some tents might even have color-coded pole tips and grommet straps. Just match them. Of course, if your tent has pole sleeves, then you'll have to push the tent pole through the sleeve. Push, not pull, and then insert the pole tips into the grommets. Be aware that there might be some resistance when you bend the poles, but don't worry. If you've assembled them correctly, they won't break. After you've done this, attach the tent body to the pole structure by hooking the clips to the poles. If you haven't done so, you could start to stake the tent to the ground by attaching the tent pegs. Find one corner, pull the grommet strap, and insert the pole into a loop at the end of the tent. Don't insert the peg into the grommet. Personally, I prefer to stake my pegs diagonally, but you don't have to do this. Just make sure that the body is perfectly stretched out. Here's an expert tip. If the campsite is extremely windy, I would stake the footprint and the tent body first before anything else. Another advanced tip, make sure that the peg is inserted into the ground pointing towards the tent body rather than away from it. This way you have a stronger pitch and the peg will not come undone from a sudden gust of wind. Another expert tip, use your boots to push the peg into the ground so you don't damage the peg by using a rock to hammer it into place. Step 4. Lay the rainfly or outer tent over the pole structure. The fly is essentially the roof of your tent. It is treated with silicone to make it waterproof, and the seams underneath are reinforced with waterproof tape. The corners of the fly will have grommet straps, which are sometimes color-coded. Velcro straps that are meant to be wrapped around the poles are either taped or sewn under the fly. Now, many campers get confused on how to properly set up the fly, but I have a bulletproof tip that will solve all your problems. Just as the poles align with the seams of the tent body, the seams on the rainfly will rest directly on top of the poles. Let me say that again. Just as the poles align with the seams of the tent body, the seams on the rainfly will rest directly on the poles. It's as easy as that. Now you can pitch any freestanding tent imaginable. After that, attach the corners of the fly either to designated points or place its own grommets under the pole tips. Step number 5. If you haven't staked the tent yet, this is the part where you do that. Stretch the fabric on the tent door to create the covered spaces outside the tent body, which is called the vestibule. This is where you store equipment to keep them away from the elements and also to keep the tent floor clean and dry. If you're using a ground sheet that's bigger than your tent body, be sure to fold it under the tent body so that it doesn't become a catch basin in case it rains.
And that's the Nemo Galaxy.
Last step is to go around the tent and to tighten the rainfly's straps and adjust the pegs to achieve a taut pitch. Taut. T-A-U-T. Also, you may want to open the vents to allow for airflow and to ensure that condensation inside the tent is reduced. And that is my bulletproof step-by-step guide to pitching any freestanding tent that has ever been made. Well, like I said, almost any tent. Watch out for the next episodes where I share how you should disassemble a tent and how it should be stored when it's not in use. And another one on setting up non-freestanding tents and tarps. Once again, this is Alman, and I hope you've learned a thing or two from this video. And if you have more expert tips that I didn't mention here, just leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video or think someone might find this helpful, make sure to leave a like and share the video so that we could all have a great time outdoors. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you on the trails.